Welcome to Grid Live Wrap-Up. Denny Hamlin wins and taunts the fans by encouraging them to join the bandwagon or get run over by it. Max Verstappen of 2023 reappeared, and so did McLaren's messy Papaya rules. Plus, the Marquez brothers sweep Barcelona. I'm Joe Sandiego. With me, Kobe Lambeth from Grid Tonight and Matthew Bro from GridNetworkTV.com. Encourage everyone visit our Patreon page and support us through Patreon. Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. Big thank you to you all for making the Portland race weekend for 2025 a huge success for myself, Nicole, and everyone that helped us get all the videos, materials from the Portland race weekend. You too can invest in us through Patreon. Also, link in our channels as well to our Buy Me a Coffee. And you can do YouTube Super Chat. And the simplest way to support us, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our programs. Visit GridNetworkTV.com because I know, Matthew, you've been working on the recap for Gateway World Wide Technology Raceway. So let's dive into it with World Wide Technology in the books. The Enjoy Illinois 300. Denny Hamlin wins his 5th race of the season. He is now in the round of 12. He has to be feeling pretty good because he's looking good. 5 wins, series leading number of wins, 23-11. They look set to have Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick advance into the next round of the playoffs, which will be a huge milestone for that team. And overall, Wallace at plus 50, Reddick plus 30, entering Bristol and clearly not adversely impacted by the court hearing. Is Denny Hamlin peaking at the right time, or could this be too early to start peaking?
I would say this is almost like perfect timing. I guess you could argue too early, but considering how good Denny Hamlin has been this season, I think if he just continues to stay consistent, he'll be fine. I think there's guys you got to watch out for. Like, I think Ryan Blaney, even though he has, I believe, 7 top 10s in a row or something along those lines, he's going to be one I would say 100% watch because he really likes to peak in that 3rd to 4th to last race towards the season. And then he'll be fighting for a championship without a doubt. But yeah, for Denny Hamlin, you just got to keep going out there and performing. And it seems like him, and I'm going to tip my cap to Chase Briscoe too. Those two are just performing each week, regardless of what gets thrown at them. And it's just super impressive to watch, especially Chase Briscoe coming from last season. And then this season, I believe he has 12 top 5s. This is his 2nd top 2 finish in a row, technically. And he has 2 wins. It's just like this Chase Briscoe, you hate to see him almost being held back by his previous team, but he's really showing up. And that's something Joe Gibbs has to love. And then Christopher Bell hasn't been doing the best for his standards, but if you still look, he's 32 points to the good. And it's likely he's going to advance as well. So, yeah, and then speaking of like 23-11, very confident in Bubba Wallace, really have been. I think we all are here. But at the same time, for him to be plus 50 heading into Bristol definitely shocked me, just considering his performances at Gateway in the past. Besides his truck win, obviously here, but for him to be able to come out, not only lead the 2nd most laps, but win a stage and then end up being plus 50. He's 4th in the playoff standings right now, which, I mean, shout out to that team. It seems like you had mentioned earlier with the lawsuit. Every time, and we talk about it in our group chat as well, every time some big milestone happens in this lawsuit, it seems like 23-11, whether it's Denny Hamlin being the co-owner, Bubba Wallace, even Tyler Reddick, they come out and have either a victory or some great type of performance. So this is just another one, 2 weeks in a row where Tyler Reddick was 2nd. The previous week, Denny Hamlin comes out and wins this week. So it goes to show that the Toyota, I think in general, seems to be peaking at the right time, having most likely all of their drivers who made the playoffs advance. The closest would be Bell as 8th, which is 32 points to the cut, which is very likely that him, so Christopher Bell, Reddick, Wallace, Briscoe, and Denny Hamlin will all advance into the round of 12, which is, as Toyota, you got to love it, especially after today, too. Winning number 200 at the Cup level, which is awesome for that organization. Number 1 was in 2008, I believe, and then it took him only 17 years to get to 200 in the Cup level. Considering you had two of the best drivers in the history of your sport, Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin, getting 56 wins piece for your manufacturer. But still, all in all, like Denny Hamlin, I think he's peaking at the right time. He's been consistent pretty much all year. So it'll be interesting to see if he can keep this up and earn that first championship, this one that always seems to get away from him.
The one that seems to always get away from him, he'll love to get that. I have to agree with you. I think he is just at the right moment peaking, but this is a good time to do that because you could really distance yourself for the round of 12. If he could win at Bristol, you could carry that additional distance from him and the rest of the pack to then the round of 8. And then really round of 8, he might be the one driver that could potentially point his way in. Of course, he knows nothing's certain. I mean, last lap of Martinsville, he looked certain to be in, and then Hail Melon occurred, and he was out. So a lot could happen in the playoffs. And overall, for 23-11, that team, they have to be feeling really good, part of the Toyota effort. And Toyota led most of the lap between Bubba Wallace and Denny Hamlin. Those two led so many laps. And now all the Toyota drivers appear set to advance to the next round, the round of 12. Chevrolet, only one car in the top 10. Not a good effort by them. And when you're looking at the Chevrolet teams, we talked a little bit about the pre-race. They might be in trouble because Chase Elliott, of course, he's one of the two drivers from Chevrolet that led laps. The other one, of course, Kyle Larson. Combined 56 laps led. Joey Logano led 2 laps. Ryan Blaney led 5 laps, and Keselowski led 9 laps. That's it for Ford. Some additional notes about Toyota and just how strong they're running. I mentioned the top 10. John Hunter Nemechek, 6th place finish. He and Legacy Motor Club have found something lately. They're just coming on strong. Ty Gibbs, a top 10 finish. Missed the playoffs, but still looks like that team is getting stronger and stronger with the new crew chief that started the year with them. So overall, is Chevrolet really in the position where they're going to lose 3 Chevrolets in the first round of the playoffs?
It sure as heck looks like it, doesn't it, Joe? I mean, we talked about it, and I think I can't remember your predictions exactly too, but I know Tanner and I both had 3 Chevrolets out in the first round, but it wasn't the specific 3. We both had Shane Van Gisbergen and Austin Dillon, but I truly thought that Alex Bowman was going to dig himself out of this rut, and I honestly thought Ross Chastain was going to kind of fall off, but clearly that is not the case yet. So I think it's actually really looking like Bowman, Van Gisbergen, and Austin Dillon are going to be the 3 Chevrolets out in the first round, which is really, really crazy to me because I think these playoffs could have gone a lot of ways. I think most people, an overall consensus, agreed that Austin Dillon was probably going to be out, and then same, I believe most people agree Josh Berry on the Ford side will be out. Now, if he pulls an absolute miracle, Josh Berry does at Bristol, and Ross Chastain has a bad day, a worse day than Austin Cindric, Chevrolet could have all 4, well, not all 4, but 4 drivers all out in the one round, which theoretically probably not going to happen, but it could. So for that, I think it is actually insane to think about. And I know I want to give props to Tanner. He had mentioned that Chevrolet, in pretty much Hendrick Motorsports as well, isn't as strong at this first round as we think they are, and it's true. I mean, they had a good day today, I would say. I think 3 of their drivers in the top 12, and that's all because of real strategy. And then I think Kyle Larson was arguably the best. I would say besides Denny Hamlin, I would say Larson really was the best car out there, and mainly because if you look at the fastest laps that were set, Larson was right up there. Larson, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Larson had more fastest laps on track than Denny Hamlin did. So that kind of shows that Hendrick brought the pace. They didn't bring the pit crew again for Alex Bowman. Again, 2 weeks in a row, that guy just out of his control. You have to kind of feel bad for him in that sense too. But yeah, Chevrolet, it's not looking great for them, Joe. But at the same time, when you have Kyle Larson, William Byron, and Chase Elliott still, and then obviously Ross Chastain, you because you have the most cars in the sport and pretty much the most cars in the playoffs, as your manufacturer specifically, you're more than likely going to be okay, especially I think Larson's always a championship favorite. He's 60 points to the good. He's probably going to make it. Even if William Byron has a dreadful day at Bristol, he's still 39 points to the good. He'll be probably fine, considering how good Hendrick is there. And then obviously Chase Elliott, pretty decent driver at Bristol, I would say as well. So he should be fine too. So again, we'll see. We can talk all the talk, but I guess we'll have to come down to Saturday the 13th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern to see what really happens with Chevrolet in this last race of the round of 16.
Well, for me, the Chevrolets, this is something where we did talk about. I feel they just put everything on Hendrick Motorsports. Yes, it was nice. You got Trackhouse with 2 drivers in there, but one of them, I mean, if he runs like he did the last time in Bristol, Shane Van Gisbergen, not going to have a good day. And then Austin Dillon, I mean, granted, we're talking 11 positions, 11 points, so it's not the absolute end of the world. He's not absolutely in a must-win situation, but again, he's going to have to race really well, be ahead of Austin Cindric by 11 positions. So if Austin Cindric's in 9th place, he's in a good spot no matter what you could do. So it really seems like it might happen. That would, for me, be a big shock, but you just don't know because Bristol, I think, it's going to be a really tricky and unpredictable race as we approach it. For Josh Berry, my goodness, I know he's good at short tracks. Last year, the spring race, he had a really good run, but of course, that was the race where the tire fall off was something else. Again, crashed out early. He is really in a must-win situation at Bristol. He was in the middle of 3 wide. Chase Elliott on the inside made contact, and he went around. That front wheel was just destroyed, pretty much coming out of the car, so he was done. But I have to ask, did Josh Berry put himself in a bad spot, and was it too early to be in that position?
I wouldn't say too early. I just think Josh Berry has probably the worst luck we've seen at the same time with him. So it's like we talked about it, you and I, Joe, and we specifically said he's the red flag to watch at this event. I said because he doesn't have a lot of laps logged at Gateway, and he got wrecked out even earlier than he did last season. So I think he, without a doubt, put himself in a terrible spot, and I truly have maybe 0.5% confidence that he could win at Bristol. I just, after his win at Vegas, he really fell off. And it's just, I mean, it could be a product of the car, could be that the Vegas win without the strategy and the tires that played out in that one. If he didn't win, he would have been nowhere near the playoffs, and we wouldn't even be talking about him right now. But he did earn the victory. I'm not going to say he didn't, especially in the Wood Brothers car, which is awesome for that organization, 101 Cup wins in their existence. But, yeah, I wouldn't say he put himself in a bad spot in the race. I would say he put himself in a bad spot being so far down in the points. Obviously, 2 DNFs in a row, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like, what more can he do? He's got to go out and win. And I think a lot of people won't be too happy if he does win from 46 points out. I don't know what the biggest gap is in playoff history of like a win clinching into yourself into the next round. I think there's been really big gaps before, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. So for him, yeah, it's not looking good at all, and you feel bad because it's his first time in the playoffs. It's only his second or third Cup season, second, I believe. So it's like he's still got a lot to learn. He's a very experienced driver. He's got another race coming up too, I believe. Actually, no, I don't. Usually he races in the ASA Tour. I watch a lot of that as well, the ASA Star National, and they race Saturday that same day. So I don't think he'll be doing double duty. That he's got more stuff to focus on. But yeah, just I wish Josh the best, but it's not looking good for him. But I don't know how you feel. Do you think he put himself in a weird position there, especially Chase Elliott kind of? I don't know if they made contact, but he definitely took the air out of him, and that caused, obviously, the end of his day.
Yeah, it took the air out of the car for sure. I mean, it was hard to tell if there was contact. And at the end of the day, I just feel he had a great starting spot, 12th. Good opportunity because he has the equipment to go out there, just get the stage points, get the put himself in a good position where he could get the finishes. But it seems to be a struggle all year long, really since Las Vegas. I could think of incidents in like Homestead, Miami, running well, pit road incident. Other times, put himself in a bad spot, crashed out. I mean, really, no top 5 finish since Las Vegas win. That's something this team just really seems to be not gelling at. And when it comes to the playoffs, I thought they could rise up. They got the equipment and everything. Darlington bottoms out, lose control. He's done for. Here we are again. I mean, that's a lot of pressure on this team. They got a technical lines with Penske, but I don't think they're going to treat this like, oh, this is a Penske driver, say a Logano or a Blaney in a must-win situation. I almost see it as more, okay, he's in a must-win situation. Yeah, we'll do everything we can to help, but there's no sense of urgency from the Penske organization, in my opinion. And I just think for Ford, losing Josh Berry out of the playoffs, a lot of people predicted, but I think it's just one of those deals where it's still not good to be sure because, especially with the Toyotas, the way they're running, 5 Toyotas, you could be down to 4 Chevrolets if 3 of them are out by this round. It is just nuts. And for me, it's just nuts the thought, looking at the playoff picture, Alex Bowman in 15th behind Shane Van Gisbergen, behind Austin Dillon, plus minus 35. Truly must-win situation. He's only ahead of Josh Berry by 10 points. And since he joined Hendrick Motorsports in 2018, his only seasons without a win were 2018, first full season, and 2023. But I find this interesting. First 4 years, 6 wins. The last 3 full seasons, and counting this one, so it'll be essentially the last 4 years once this season's completed, just 1 win in 2024. We also know 2023 is when Blake Harris joined as the crew chief. Does Mr. Hendrick consider making a change? Because this team does not seem to be moving forward. Bowman's contract is through 2026. What needs to be done for this 48 team?
I think they need to treat him better, personally. I just think he's always been treated as the 4th driver, and I feel like there's never a moment in Alex Bowman's career, specifically at Hendrick Motorsports, where they've been like, I can't say supportive, but I feel like they still don't give him enough credit. Granted, I know his other 3 counterparts are going to be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. I would probably bet on it right now that William Byron, Chase Elliott, and Kyle Larson are all NASCAR Hall of Famers. And Bowman's not, unfortunately. I think if he wins a few more races, then you can start a conversation. Maybe he sneaks in. I don't know if he's going to be a championship driver anytime soon, but I just feel like he's kind of like Suarez in the sense. And Tanner and I had talked about this prior, so please hear me out about it. But Suarez, he might have been in the best equipment when he was with like Joe Gibbs, when he was with Stuart Haas. But when Suarez is not treated to make himself feel important, make him be happy in the car, he doesn't perform well. So when he goes to Trackhouse, a new team, he comes out and wins, I believe, twice. So that's crazy. He had more wins with Trackhouse than he did with Joe Gibbs racing at the Cup level and Stuart Haas at the Cup level. I feel like Alex Bowman, regardless of how well he does, people will always look at him as the 4th guy, the one who's going to be replaced, stuff like that. So I feel like deep down it messes with him a little bit, and I just don't think it's fair to him. So we're always having this conversation like, does Mr. Hendrick consider a change? Probably, but at the same time, there is no driver that has all 38 races sponsored by the same organization, which is a lot of money, especially to be on a Hendrick car, than Ally and Alex Bowman. He does all 38 races, so 36 regular season, the other exhibition. Larson's close with HendrickCars.com, and then obviously Shell with Joey Logano. But for Alex Bowman to be the only driver that has every single race sponsored by the same one, Ally clearly likes him. So they could be a part of the decision, whether he stays with the team or not. You know what I mean? But I just feel like, I know his contract's through 2026. I still feel like he deserves the courtesy to let him drive through that contract. And then if 2027 comes along and you want to go the route of someone else on your organization, whether it's Carson Hocevar, whether it's some up-and-coming Xfinity driver like a Jesse Love, if he doesn't end up in Toyota with Legacy, whenever that's a rumor, obviously, or someone else in the Chevrolet camp. Austin, I can't say Austin Hill. I don't think he'd be a Hendrick driver, but you know what I mean. So it's like, I feel like I think if you're Hendrick Motorsports, you at least owe Bowman to give you one more year. And if you want to replace him, you find someone to replace him. But I feel like he constantly gets treated as almost the lowest man on the totem pole. And maybe he is at Hendrick, but people fail to realize he was in the top 10 in the regular season standings. He just didn't, or I believe he's top 11, just didn't get a win. So obviously it made him look worse than it did. And he would have been out if somebody else pulled off a miracle, the 2nd through 5th place finishers at Daytona. So guess it was lucky for him he got in. And sorry to rant about it. I just feel like people in the media, not us obviously, but like, I feel like people and fans just never treat Alex Bowman fairly, and I think he deserves a lot better treatment. And he would have been in the round of 8 if he didn't get disqualified for smashing that turtle bump thing and then letting Joey Logano get in and then win the championship that year. If he made the weight, we'd be having probably a different conversation about Bowman in that sense too, because he got eliminated earlier than he should have last season. So I guess it is what it is. To end my long rant, I apologize to the people at home, but just if Bowman's going to probably not make the next round, and I guess whoop-de-doo. Jimmy Johnson in pretty much that same car, you could argue. I know the 48 became the 5 technically when Larson joined, but Jimmy Johnson didn't win a couple seasons, so I feel like we shouldn't crap on Alex Bowman in that number 48 for not winning either, because it happens.
It happens, and I think it's something where people, just because he is always seen as the 4th driver, I mean, it's impressive to think that in his first 4 years with Hendricks, he was able to get 6 wins. We know how hard it is to win in the Cup Series, and there's been drivers. I've gone to Hendrick and only gotten 1 win or no wins. Casey Mears comes to mind. Jerry Nadeau, 1 win. The fact that, Bowman was able to get so many wins in his first 4 years, and then really this next 3 years, okay, 1 win, but he had the adversity of injuries, missing races, a crew chief change in 2023. Here we are, 2024. Gets a win in 2025. Maybe that might be something Hendrick will look at, but as you said, he got Ally. That's a big deal. Ally seems to be very happy with him. Same time, I like to see their driver win, so I'm really curious to see what's going to happen. And if there's a new crew chief in 2026, they better be on the same page, because we know that's a contract year. And there's always been rumors, including earlier this year, it was a rumor about Carson Hocevar. Those rumors seem to die down, especially that was before his comments about Mexico City, and then that wind blew up. I'm really curious to see what this team's going to do. I mean, if anything, if they get eliminated from the playoffs in the round of 16 and not make the round of 12, no pressure. Just go out there, try to win the race, be aggressive. Maybe they can find something and something will click. And he still has time to get a win, in my opinion, this year. The piss off troubles, though, that's just something where that pit crew is just, I mean, what are they doing? If we had a segment of what are you doing, that pit crew will be the highlight of the last 2 race weekends. They're just nothing. I just can't believe it. Now, one major point of contention from this race, the rivalry between Kyle Larson and Ryan Blaney. The two of them racing each other. They were side by side for a while. Then Larson, a little bit behind, trying to make a move on the inside, got tight, moved up the track, spun Ryan Blaney around. Blaney did not hit the wall, was able to keep going, but he had to come a long way from the back to recover to a fourth place finish. Larson, who wasn't able to run on, he came home 12th, but he later on had a diffuser issue. It was like the flap from the diffuser deployed, so they had to fix it on pit road. He lost a lot of positions, but he came home in 12th. Blaney approached Larson. They chatted after the race. Larson said he made a mistake. Blaney said he'll remember this. Was the contact avoidable from Larson's perspective? And does Blaney make life difficult for Larson later in the playoffs?
I mean, yeah. So first off, I want to clarify if anyone on pit crew is listening, we can't do that. So I'll take the criticism just from a friend, because if you saw my overweight butt out there trying to do that, no, it would not work out. I was an athlete, not anymore, can't do it. And so I feel bad for the Bowman crew. But for the Larson contact, I mean, for the so-called one of the best drivers in the world, he really messes up a lot. And that was very mess-upable, right? I can't think of a real word for that one. But I guess you'd say the real greatest in the world finished 8th at Gateway. And I'm not talking about Bubba Wallace, who got caught in the shifting issue, which pretty much ruined Larson's day. He's told him apologies. Talking about Alex Palou, who finished 8th at Gateway in IndyCar this season. So that was just a fun joke. Also, kind of a coincidence that Bubba also finished 8th here today in the NASCAR event. And then obviously Palou finished 8th in the IndyCar event. But yeah, it was 100% avoidable. Larson, it was like a dive bomb, kind of, but he somehow, I don't think, obviously, Larson does not intentionally wreck people. He just steps on himself a lot. And that was just one of those cases where he hit Blaney and Blaney spun around. Luckily for Blaney, he is one of the best, if not, I would say Blaney is the most underrated driver because of how good he is every single week and everywhere. And he still doesn't get a lot of praise for how good he is. So for Blaney, he's probably one of the few guys in the sport that could bounce back from that. Maybe a Hamlin could do the same thing, bounce back from getting spun by a rival and then coming back to finish inside the top 5. So it seems like Larson made Blaney's life a lot more difficult than it needed to be. I feel like Blaney, there comes a time where Blaney needs to do something about it because he seems to be the one driver that gets wrecked a lot or spun a lot, and he never can't. I'm not going to tell him to retaliate, but Blaney, there's certain line between being the nice guy and standing up for yourself. And I think Ryan Blaney, it's time to stand up for yourself because he's going to continue to win races and win championships being the way he is. But I feel like less people will kind of drive like buttheads around him if he does stand up for himself at least once. Like if he put his arm on Kyle Larson's shoulder or something today. And granted, if it was intentional, I could see this. So Blaney, I think, acted right, though, at the end of the day. But if he put his hand on Larson's shoulder and was like, listen, stop doing this stuff. You're one of the best in the sport. Why do you continuously make my life difficult? Stuff like that. I think it would kind of be like, oh, so Blaney's mad, not just on the radio. He's really mad in general. And I think he would have been more mad if that ended his day, so we would have saw a different Ryan Blaney after the fact. But it was 100% avoidable. Not sure why Larson did it. And Larson is still one of the best. I'm not going to trash him as a driver because he really is one of the best drivers in the world. It's just he seems to make way more mistakes than the other best drivers in the world week in and week out. And I think even after the Indy 500, I know we talked, well, he's been good, but he hasn't been Kyle Larson good. He's just been good. So it's kind of, I think Larson will get at least one more win this season. I don't know where it's going to be. It probably will be at Bristol, to be honest with you. Again, he'll sweep that most likely, but he's got to figure it out. And it is crazy that a lot of his worst set of weeks is still better than many people's best sets of weeks. So for Larson, he's still third. He's third in the playoff standings, and he seems to not have a couple good weeks. So that's how good Larson is too. So before I put him down a little bit, but I want to build him back up because obviously he's still one of the best. I'm not going to sit here in my bedroom and start trashing these guys when I know they're very, very talented. The pit crew guys, the drivers, just kind of our observations about it. So, yeah, I wonder, how's your take? Do you think this was an avoidable contact, Joe, or do you think it just I don't know how you can say it wasn't avoidable, honestly. So I don't really want to ask you that question. I just want to hear your thoughts about it.
Yeah, I feel it was avoidable. I mean, I get it. Your car could get tight and you go up the track. And that happens in racing. But we saw a couple of laps of them side by side where Larson moved up and then they didn't make contact. And this still goes back to, I think, sort of where it's like Larson tries to get more out of the car when really it's not there. And then just seems to make a move where it's like, okay, that wasn't the smartest move. And this was one of those moves where it was just like, you're going in that deep, your car's going to slide up. And we've seen throughout the weekend, some cars higher up there, they find that grip, they start coming down a little bit. Here's this contact. If this was IndyCar, I think it's pretty safe to say avoidable contact penalty to Larson. But this is stock car racing. This is no such thing as avoidable contact. It's just that's part of racing. And while it was not intentional, I don't think he was thinking straight. And that's why Blaney went there and Blaney said, why did I deserve to get hit like that? And Larson, I just made a mistake. But for Blaney to just say, well, I'm going to remember that. I mean, if Blaney is in a situation and they're racing hard and car gets a little tight or a little loose and into Larson, well, I made a mistake. Sorry about that, buddy. So it's really something where I don't think Larson should be doing these kind of mistakes because that's just going to hurt him if Blaney and him are racing for championships later on in the season. And overall, for Kyle Larson, somebody that does so much racing, dirt everywhere, I just think he could have handled this a lot better. It's just unfortunate for him as well, too. The diffuse situation that ruined what was going to be a good day. Larson overall, though, he looks set to advance to the next round. And from the next round, just try to get the job done and not make those kind of mistakes, because I think a lot of people are starting to recognize that. I mean, especially after the first race in Darlington, where people were like, what are you doing, Kyle Larson? I think that's going to start becoming a bit more of a trend if he keeps doing such moves like this. And of course, Bristol, well, if there was a track where Blaney could say he made a mistake, but maybe get away with not making a mistake, that will be at Bristol next weekend. And yeah, Larson might be good point-wise. Blaney's comfortably in the points. So I wouldn't count those two not making contact. They're running side by side, and one that wants to get that win and those playoff points. But be sure to tune in next week when we preview the NASCAR race at Bristol. Matthew, we'll go ahead and let you go. But before we go, what is your shining moment from the race weekend?
I'll give you two quick ones and then a regular one. So from Formula One, Max Verstappen, just finally, it seems like they figured it out, and then their new team principal as well, getting his first win with them. So shout out Max Verstappen. I think that's definitely a one shining moment for that organization. Not the Yuki part, but Max winning and Red Bull. For MotoGP, the Marquez brothers, can't wait to hear you two talk about that. You and Kobe talk about those two just absolutely kicking butt over in the MotoGP side. Some awesome photos that we talked about those two together, finishing first and second, I believe. And Alex wrecked out the first race, but still first and second, pretty awesome for the main race. But my one shining moment for the whole weekend, second week in a row, it's going to be this, but it's actually going to be Toyota again, specifically in NASCAR, because last week I believe they had like 6 cars in the top 10. Did it again this week. But for them to earn 200 Cup Series victories is a very important accomplishment, milestone for that organization. Specifically, Denny Hamlin getting number 56 in his career with Toyota, which ties him with Kyle Busch for the most wins in Toyota history. So that's an awesome thing to say as well for at the Cup level. But also I want to shout out specifically one driver again, and that's John Hunter Nemechek. I feel like I was one to critique him a lot and be like, if Toyota puts Heim in a car, it's going to be, besides Riley Herbst, it would be John Hunter Nemechek. But truly, John Hunter Nemechek has been incredible this season. And he just earned his 8th top 10 of the year. And if people don't realize, he had 7 in his Cup Series career heading into this year. And he already has 8 this season in a Legacy Motor Club car, which is awesome. And a fun fact, I tweeted out about it or posted on social media about it. All of his top 10s this season have come like back-to-back weeks. So if he gets one top 10, he usually gets another one. So he has them at Daytona, Atlanta, Texas, Kansas, Mexico City, Pocono, Darlington, and now Gateway. So I really think people should be talking a little more about John Hunter Nemechek and just how really well he's done this season. I know if he was an Xfinity car, Joe Gibbs, he'd probably have 4 or 5 wins this season when Zilich hasn't won the other ones. I think John Hunter Nemechek could be an Xfinity champion if he stayed down there. However, he isn't down there. That's a hypothetical. He's up in Cup and he's getting top 10s. Very well deserved for that organization. So I think Toyota in general, but John Hunter Nemechek finishing 6th at Gateway truly is my one main shining moment from this race weekend.
Yeah, what a race weekend for John Hunter. It's like Legacy Motor Club. They got it going on. Be great to see what they could do next race weekend at Bristol. Thank you so much for your time, Matthew, and we encourage everyone to check out Matthew Burrow's article on gridnetworktv.com. That'll be coming out a little later on. Meantime, let's switch over to Formula One. We'll bring Kobe in because Kobe, Formula One, as Matthew said, we saw the Italian Grand Prix and the old Max Verstappen from 2023 show up. What a race. At the end of the day, he proved to the McLaren drivers, the team, they still have flaws and they may not be bulletproof. Because Max Verstappen, that Red Bull team had them covered on pace today, strategy today. They recovered. He went on to take a convincing win at Monza and overall showed that he could still get the job done. Maybe not his teammate exactly. Maybe the car may not be perfect, but he looked very good out there. In fact, it was McLaren that was playing the team orders that had everyone talking because at the end of the day, Lando Norris pitted second. Oscar Piastri had pitted the lap before. A slow pit stop, something with the left front wheel gun was not working. 5-second pit stop, loses the position to Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri is then asked, slow down, let your teammate get the position. So sure enough, Oscar Piastri relinquished the position, gave it back to Lando. So Lando Norris finished second in the race, in which it could have easily been Oscar Piastri, the points leader, taking second place. But overall, Kobe, was this the right call for McLaren to give Lando second place back because of a mistake they have made, or unnecessary race manipulation?
Well, you hear Max Verstappen on the radio. He was laughing. He said, "Did this?" He was like, "Did this literally just happen?" And then they reported, from the pits, that it's none of our business. But basically, yes, that's what happened with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. I know we always talk about these Papaya rules and all of this, and honestly, for Lando to have this issue in the pits, in my opinion, Joe, it's just racing. Stuff like this happens, and if you were on pace to finish second, that the team should execute it, and he should have come out of pits ahead instead of they've had that slow stop, and then Oscar went by, and then they told Oscar they wanted him to give up the position and allow Lando to get by, since Lando was going to finish second. Honestly, didn't think that this move was necessary at all. And I feel like you win as a team, you lose as a team. In this situation, I felt like Lando Norris and his McLaren pit crew, deserved to finish third in this race, because unless he was able to, get past Oscar, fair and square. Once they swapped them and all of that, they were obviously free to race after that. But, given the dirty air situation, how difficult it is past, especially when it gets strung out, in these Formula One races, Oscar just couldn't get there again. It was real unfortunate from Oscar's perspective, but I see this as, McLaren, trying to be nice to Lando because of his engine problem the last time out, and it really cost him a lot of points in the World Drivers' Championship. So I guess this is their way of, trying to make it up to him. Be like, see, Lando, we're going to give you a few extra points on Oscar here in the championship. And Oscar, he was professional about it. You can tell, he didn't really want to do this. I mean, who would, since he executed, on track, and then the pit crew executed for him. They just didn't execute for Lando. And then they'd be asked, then you're being punished for your success, on the track and in the pits. Real frustrating situation. I even saw, comments from the Aussie F1 fans who were really upset about this. I know some Aussie F1 fans, feel like their drivers get slighted a lot, because I've been seeing that, all throughout the year, when Jack Doohan, lost to see the Alpine, I felt like he got slighted. I feel like, Lando is forever McLaren's golden boy, and that Oscar will always be second fiddle, even if he is the better driver over Lando Norris. And even during the Vettel, Mark Webber era, I felt like Webber was getting slighted by Vettel, at various times as well. So real rough time for the Aussie F1 fans here to see this situation play out. But, just to bring all together, felt like McLaren did not need to do this. And I really hated that Oscar was, penalized in this situation away by losing a point.
Yeah, I felt it was unnecessary. I mean, it's racing, motorsports. Sometimes bad luck occurs. I get it. Lando Norris, they said before he made the pit stop, he asked, there's no undercut. And they said, yeah, there's no undercut. The slow pit stop, I mean, that happens sometimes. And unfortunately, it did. Loses position. He was quiet on the radio for the remainder of the race until he got the position back. Clearly not happy, but I just feel like we're talking about motorsports. We're talking about racing. Championships are on the line. Granted, I don't see a risk of Oscar Piastri just having the worst luck and losing the championship by 2 points. But at the end of the day, this is motorsports, and I feel this is just something where it's just really unnecessary. And I think McLaren team, they hopefully will not have situations where this is going to occur again and again, because it could easily become a distraction for them. One of the things at Monza, this track, low downforce, that seemed to really help the Red Bulls look unstoppable, at least for Max Verstappen. But now I have to say, it's safe to say Max Verstappen overall will not have a second half of the season surge to go for the Drivers' Championship. He's still a little bit too far behind, in my opinion, to go claim that championship. But Max, he looked very comfortable. He looked like he was just enjoying the weekend, relaxed. I mean, as you mentioned, Kobe, when he laughed when he heard about what the McLaren drivers did with swapping the position over a slow pit stop. This just seems like something we haven't seen from Max in a long time. Could some positive changes be occurring since Horner had left?
I mean, obviously it's hard to tell, since we're not inside Red Bull Racing to see what's gone on since Christian Horner has left. But at least, some of the baggage and controversy that Horner, carried with him is no longer in that building, and, Lauren Mekies, have to congratulate him, as Matthew did for getting his, first win as an F1 team principal. Yeah, got to be really exciting for him to be able to, do this with the Red Bull team, given all the turmoil, and drama happening behind the scenes within this organization. And maybe he can be a steady hand, try to get them back on the top more regularly than not, because today the Max Verstappen we saw is the Max Verstappen that we've seen in his championship winning years, that he's going out there, set the fastest lap time in Formula One history, which was really impressive, because we expected this to be a weekend on McLaren, and here comes Max Verstappen, comes in to spoil the show. And sometimes these races are won on Saturday, and I felt like Max had this race halfway won when he scored the surprise pole in qualifying and executed a perfectly flawless race, as both McLaren drivers were not able to get by him. But all in all, I think there's more. It's more so like there's some positive vibes, coming out of Red Bull now. I know their car is not where they would like it to be, but in the post Horner era, I think that especially on Max's side, they can be really pleased with the way things are going, because I've been reading some comments about what's been said from Max about after the Horner departure, like wanting to lock in and show his commitment to the team after all the rumors of him potentially leaving for Mercedes, as soon as next season, which is not going to happen now. It looks like Max is going to continue to drive for Red Bull next year and into the future, and see out this Ford power unit project that they have coming along with the new regulations in 2026. But all in all, I think that to be happy on his side of the garage. But for Yuki Tsunoda, basically same story, just a different day.
Same story, different day for Yuki Tsunoda. Just not having the season he anticipated. I mean, granted, it started with Racing Bulls, now Red Bull. It's just nothing looking like it's working out. Ferrari, they had a decent day, but also they didn't have anything really for the McLaren and Max Verstappen. One positive surprise, I would say, Gabriel Bortoleto, scored points in the Sauber here. On track, high speeds, low downforce, what an effort by him. In fact, 3 rookies who started the season, all of them that are still running, have more than 16 points in the Drivers' Championship. 2 of them have podiums. Isaac Hajar, Kimi Antonelli. I'll be shocked if Gabriel Bartello could get a podium in that Sauber, but we already saw one Sauber get a podium. So I guess I can't rule it out completely, but Kimi Antonelli got a penalty today, lost a position, and many have been critical about him in F1 lately, that the pressure's getting to him. Even some suggest maybe he's not cut out for F1, but he's still a rookie. Is this criticism fair, or is it harsh considering Kimi Antonelli is a rookie?
Yeah, before getting to Antonelli, of course, Joe left out one rookie there, Oliver Behrman as well. Yeah, he's right. Yeah. So I guess that makes 4 rookies, who's had some success this year. But in regards of Kimi Antonelli, I have to ask, question to Toto Wolff here. What do you expect, right? Because this kid, is he's extremely young, literally right out of high school, just 19 years old, and you literally rushed him all the way up to the pinnacle of motorsport. And I remember hearing the name Kimi Antonelli a few years ago, and people saying, that this is the next great driver, that this is the next Max Verstappen in terms of how young he is and how ready he will be to go into Formula One. And I'll admit, Joe, at the start of this year, Kimi has some really good runs. I gave him credit for it, because heading into this year, when they announced that Kimi was going to be promoted up to the Mercedes Formula One team, I was thinking, I think this is a little too soon for him to go out to go up to Formula One. And then he starts off the year, almost finishing on the podium in Australia, then having some good runs in China and Japan. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe this kid is ready for F1. And then had great results as well in Saudi Arabia and Miami. And then after Miami, the wheels have kind of fallen off of Kimi Antonelli's season. In the last 10 races, he's only finished inside the points 3 times, which is not the greatest if you're driving a Mercedes. And his best finish, got his first and only career podium up to this point, in Montreal, Canada, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, towards the beginning of the summertime. And that's really been the highlight of his season, because lately, he's had multiple retirements and finishing outside of the points, and just not doing what he needs to do in that Mercedes car, because George Russell, I believe, is maximizing that car and getting as much as he can out there, while Kimi Antonelli, I know he finished inside the points, today at Monza, that's great, but he was still far off from where his teammate George Russell was. I know Villeneuve has been extremely critical of Kimi, saying that maybe he can't handle the pressures of F1, that this is not school Kimi and stuff like that. And then I hear Toto Wolff, criticizing Kimi today, saying that he made way too many mistakes. And I'll ask you again, Toto, what do you expect? Because you literally, had this kid come up through the junior formulas. You had him skip Formula 3, which was probably a mistake. You put him in F2 a year in which he didn't set the world on fire or win the championship. And then you move him into a Mercedes Formula 1 car with all this pressure. I believe if they wanted to move him to Formula 1, they probably should have put him in a less pressured environment. I know they've had a good relationship with Williams over the years, and maybe they could have brought a veteran like, say, a Carlos Sainz in there. Instead of Sainz being at Williams, they could have moved him into Mercedes, so you could have a good veteran alongside George Russell, and then you put Kimi Antonelli at Williams, or he can, grow, make mistakes, learn over at Williams, where you're not going to have all of the spotlight on you at all times. Whether you're in a Mercedes car, you're expected to be out there fighting, inside the top 5 on most given race weekends. And for Kimi Antonelli, that's been really hard to come by, especially there in the last 10 races. So it's just been really hard for him. And still, at the end of the day, he's currently in the top 10 in the World Drivers' Championship, which isn't bad, but he's many points behind his teammate George Russell. And in the world of Formula One, you're always compared to your teammate. Yeah, but I think that given that Kimmy has been under a lot of pressure, receiving criticism from Toto Wolff now, I honestly think that all of this could have been prevented. I still think that Kimi Antonelli is a really good talent, but given all the pressure that he's under to perform, I'm honestly kind of worried that they could end up ruining this kid with all the because it's really a lot for a 19-year-old to be put in a situation like this. Like every 18, 19-year-old kid can't be Max Verstappen, who just goes out there, execute flawlessly and does things that you don't see kids this age do in these Formula One cars. And I feel like the Mercedes should have slowed Kimi's development down instead of skipping Formula 3. I think it should have raced in the Formula 3 series. Could have been really helpful for him because kids his age now are actually racing full time in Formula 3. So he's actually at the age where he could be racing at that level right now and continuing to develop his skills. And I honestly felt like after last season, he needed to spend another year in Formula 2. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case because they were so gung-ho on moving him up to Formula 1. And this is the results you're getting now. You're getting a driver out there who's at times, looks, completely shattered confidence-wise. And when you give him when you add additional pressure and all that, like Toto's doing, by talking about making too many mistakes, it just adds insult to injury. And I really feel like that Mercedes really has a flawed plan here, with Kimi's development. And I think at the end of the day, it could potentially be too much for the young driver.
I agree with you, and especially with Toto. It's like you guys clearly rushed him up to F1. I mean, even if they did what they did, I would agree with what you said. Put Carlos Sainz in that Mercedes for a year. Have Kimi Antonelli into Williams because, okay, it's a Williams car. Is it better than where it was 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? Yes. He has some good runs. Just get the experience down. But to put him in, I mean, right away into Mercedes with George Russell and a team that their goal is to get the constructors, that's a tall task for a 19-year-old kid. And overall, I just think it's just really just one of those situations like he was rushed up. He's put in a team environment where it's championship wins or bust. Should have been placed into that Williams team. I think everyone would have been a winner too, because it seems like Carlos Sainz is not the most happiest person at Williams right now. Kimi Antonelli, 18th in the points. Put him in the Mercedes. I'm pretty sure he would have a lot less DNFs unless he just made a lot of mistakes. More races up towards the front. And it would have been a win-win for a 1 year plan. And then, okay, next year they swap. But yeah, it's just going to be really unfortunate if they just lose the confidence in Kimi Antonelli and then say, we need somebody else. I think that's really, like you said, it could ruin this kid, which is really unfortunate for a 19-year-old. Get the dream opportunity to go to F1 and then have this all work out to just where you could be out of a ride before you know it. Not great, but of course we'll be following F1. They'll be off the next race weekend, but MotoGP will be back again next weekend, and let's start off with the MotoGP race weekend.
And in MotoGP, it was the Marquez brothers sweeping the weekend with Alex Marquez winning the Catalan Grand Prix ahead of Marc in second. However, Marc won the sprint race on Saturday after his brother crashed out of the lead, and this gives four riders this leaves four riders in mathematical contention for the championship. But depending on what happens at Misano, Marc could enter Japan with the chance to clinch the championship. And last year, we saw how the championship was close all year between Pecco Bagnaia, who's really dropped off in form in 2025, and Jorge Martin. Good to see him back on track. And the sprint races played a major role in last year's championship battle between Pecco Bagnaia and Jorge Martin. And now with Marc Marquez running away with the title, it might be wrapped up with 5 races remaining. Joe, after seeing how Marc Marquez, has completely dominated this year, the sprints and the Grand Prix races, does this change your opinion on the sprint race format? Like, do you think it's good for MotoGP after, getting a couple of seasons under their belt, or do you think it's like really ruining things?
I don't have a firm opinion on it. I know when it was first introduced, I did not like the idea because we were talking then when MotoGP had 21 races, just made it a 42 race season with those sprint races. Granted, they're much shorter distance. Still, what a MotoGP rider goes through during a Grand Prix race weekend with all the practice session, qualifying session, then the race itself, very demanding on their bodies. I mean, MotoGP athletes are just some of the best in the world. So fit, they go through so much their bodies. A lot of them go through the arm pump surgery to just help them handle those motorcycles on such extreme speeds. Last year, the championship, it was very tight because of the sprint races, but it has that unique circumstance where Pecco Bagnaia, first rider in MotoGP history to get more than 10 wins, but not the championship, because Jorge Martin was better in those sprint races. Was it good as in it kept the championship close compared to a Pecco Bagnaia runaway? I guess you could say yes, it did that. But now here we are, and Marc Marquez is truly running away with this. I mean, he's won every sprint race except two now. He has won just about every race, really. He's been on the podium for almost every race. He is running away to where he could wrap this up by Japan. I mean, realistically, if he had gotten the race win again and Alex Marquez was a little further back, Pecco Bagnaia just does not have that form this year, it seems. We could be getting down to where he just needs to go in Japan and just start the race 15th or better, because the top 15 positions in the Grand Prix pay points, and he gets a championship. And we still have 5 races to go. I'm really curious, especially now that Liberty Media owns MotoGP, would they say, we want to change something with this championship? Because I got an idea, just like how we saw Liberty Media take F1 to that next level where the accessibility to the fans, the championship, everything has been made bigger, better by F1 to where it was 10, 20 years ago. They're going to start looking at ways to make it where, okay, the championship, we don't want a runaway like this. We want something to where, I wouldn't say a playoff, but maybe a change where, okay, the sprint races, maybe you don't get the points, but it's just whoever wins the most sprint races, then there's a set of bonus points that comes towards that at the end of the season. Maybe it's a separate championship, and then those bonus points comes to the Grand Prix. Because it's just so odd for me that a series with a sprint race each and every week, their format does not count sprint wins towards Grand Prix wins, which I agree with, but then it's just like it's its own little category. Where does this go long term? In the case of this year, with Marc Marquez just dominating the field, running away with it, it just makes it where it's like, okay, it's truly a runaway, and 5 races left and a championship decided. That is just something. Recently, I cannot think of any series, especially in the grid ranking, where you had more than 5 races to go and the championship was already decided. So I would not be surprised if Liberty Media says we need to do some adjustments.
Yeah, it would certainly be interesting if I mean, Marc Marquez is obviously the clear favorite to win this championship. I think he is more than likely, unless lightning strikes, that he could win this championship. Honestly, I think he could potentially end his season tonight, and he'll still end up being the champion that no one's gonna catch him. But yeah, we're definitely gonna be following, what Liberty Media is doing. Especially since I believe a few months ago, I think it was in July, the sale was finally complete. So now, Liberty Media, they can start, working towards the future of MotoGP and try to make this series bigger and better than it's ever been before. And I don't know if they would consider this, Joe, but do you think we could see MotoGP playoffs? I know Supercars recently brought playoffs. I don't know how this would work in motorcycle race or anything like that. I don't think they would go down that route, but I'm sure they would try to do anything to try to keep, I guess from their perspective, try to keep people tuned in, since I know some people seem to think, if the championship is wrapped up, before the finale, or even this case, potentially 5 races early, that people are just going to tune out, not even care to watch MotoGP because you already know who's more than likely going to win 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll exactly be playoffs. My thought is just something where, I mean, heck, even if they get rid of the sprints, I don't think a lot of people are going to be bummed by it. I don't think it's really added that much to the track, except, okay, you got a little bit more attendance Saturday now, but it's just hard to see. I mean, There's rumors of an IndyCar playoff. Supercars are doing a playoff. With them, I mean, they got 22 races. If they did a more simplified 5 race chase playoff, whatever, it's just going to be really interesting to see what they're thinking. And it's Liberty Media. Looks like Oscar Piastri could run away with his championship. So why not? Liberty Media tried to use MotoGP as sort of the guinea pig of let's introduce some sort of playoff or something to ensure that we have a closer championship with the final 5 races, then maybe incorporate down to F1. That's opening Pandora's box. It'll be fun to see what Liberty Media decides.
Yeah, like honestly, Joe, I remember we were really skeptical when they first announced this sprint race format, and I do agree it was really interesting to see, how it kept Pecco Bagnaia and Jorge Martin close in the championship all throughout the season and until the very end. But this year, you just haven't had one guy dominating the Grand Prix races like Pecco was, or one guy dominating the sprint like Jorge Martinez. It's been, the Marquez brother, mostly Marc Marquez, all season long. So it hasn't been one or the other. And I think, just that level of dominance we've seen from Marc this year, just need the other riders, to try to step it up, especially if they're not going to go away from this format. But from what I would like to see, I'm sure the riders will be happy, about this as well, given, doing an additional race takes an extra toll on their body, and also increases the risk of an injury. I like to see them do what F1 is doing right now, which is, only have a select amount of sprint races, every year, maybe about 5 or 6, so you can still have your sprints in there, but it's not gonna, completely shadow the whole season where you're doing it every single weekend. You spread them out. I know it's kind of weird with F1s, did a few at the beginning of the season and then middle of the season, absolutely no sprint race in for the most part. And then at the end of the season, we're going to just have like a sprint, and then we're done. Yeah, so I think that would probably be what I would do if I were in this situation, is take away sprint races every single weekend, just do it on select weekends. And also change it up every year so you're not having a sprint race at the same tracks year in and year out. And we'll close the door on MotoGP there, and we'll take a look at the grid ranking. Top 10 for week 23. Denny Hamlin has moved up to 7th from 8th, but no major changes overall after this weekend. Outside of the top 10, Max Verstappen has moved up to 14th after his win at Monza. Alex Marquez moved up after his win as well at Barcelona. Chase Briscoe is closing in on Kyle Larson, I believe, in 15th place. And then Pecco Bagnaia, the defending grid ranking world champion, fell to 23rd, who's really not having a good time right now, since Marc Marquez's teammate is leaving him, in his dust. And next weekend, a lot going on. We have MotoGP, NASCAR, Supercars, and World Rally Championship all in action. Now, we're getting close to mid-September now. The motorsport season coming to an end in the next couple of months or so, but we still have a lot of racing left in this 2025 motorsport season, and we're almost out of time for tonight, so we'll get on with our great one shining moment from this race weekend, and let us know down in the chat below if you're watching here live or on replay, what's the one thing that stood out the most to you from this weekend. It could either be from the NASCAR Cup Series race at Gateway, Formula One Italian Grand Prix at Monza, or the Catalan Grand Prix. And Joe, I'm going to let you go first. What's your one shining moment?
My shining moment, it's weird. I never thought I would say this, especially at the beginning of the year. It's going to see Max Verstappen winning at Italy at the Italian Grand Prix. I think for the longest time, especially Max Verstappen after his dominant 2023 season, people were getting to the point where it's like, okay, Max Verstappen, they see some of his negative comments that he has done, see him as a sort of, okay, what is he doing? Just his own little thing. He's never happy. He doesn't seem to really be there, doesn't seem to care, but just win in an intense role. But this weekend, he seemed to be the complete opposite. Chill, relax, calm. Overall, I mean, he knew he seemed to have something special, and it just seemed like that team was just beaming and positive energy in a year where that has not been the case. I feel like this was sort of seeing Max Verstappen sort of become that positive leader of, hey, we need to get things going the right way. Maybe this was that first step in doing that, because he just, the way he was, even laughing at when he heard about what McLaren had done, And then the post-race interview, to see the excitement, how he leaped to his team's arms to celebrate. Seems like this is something we haven't seen in a long time, even when he did win earlier this year. So Max Verstappen, he gets my shine moment because I think this could be the start, maybe something of a different Max Verstappen where he's still going to be the same Max Verstappen on the track. He might still be the same Max Verstappen that we don't like seeing at the media room. But maybe something's changing to where he could be a better leader in that team. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an interesting thought, Joe. Maybe we could see Max Verstappen, taking the next step, and evolving and maturing as, not just a driver, as you said, but also as a leader. And I agree with the sentiment that you have as well, Joe, about Max Verstappen. Seem like a guy, who's basically, I hate to say it this way, but just a guy who's out there to, collect the paycheck and, win races and championships. That he's not. I often question, does this guy truly love racing, or is he, just out there in the best car, just extremely talented. Basically, out in the NBA, we think about Nikola Jokic. I'm not sure if you follow basketball, Joe, but a lot of basketball fans feel like Nikola Jokic, doesn't really care about basketball, as much as the other guys. That he's just there, to get his max contract and, and compete in the playoffs and try to win, as many games as he can in championships. But with Max Verstappen, it really seemed like this weekend the passion is there, that he's, talking about, wanting to work with the team building towards next year and all of that. And I think it would be really great for Max, and maybe some of the people who aren't really the biggest fans of his, and if he continues this up beyond this weekend, maybe they'll start to gravitate towards him. Kind of like, remember when Sebastian Vettel was at Red Bull? A lot of people did not like Sebastian Vettel at all. I think it was mostly because of his dominance and all of that. And then, once he went to Ferrari, the struggles he went through, and then the end of his F1 career, a lot of people had a soft spot for old Seb. So maybe we could be seeing a change here for Max. And my shining moment is actually going to come from none of the series we talked about tonight. Is actually going to come from one of our series in the Grid Endurance Performance Index. Is going to come from the race that was happening today that some people may not have known about. But today, the FIA World Endurance Championship race at Circuit of the Americas for a 6-hour endurance race at the Lone Star Le Mans. And my shining moment is got to go to one of the hypercar teams. How about Peugeot finishing 3rd and 4th in that race? And given all the struggles Peugeot's had since they've come back, to top level prototype racing, it was really nice to see them have a flawless weekend and actually show some speed for once, because usually when I'm turning on a World Endurance Championship race, Peugeot is running towards the back of the class, or they've retired from the race entirely due to issues with the car, on the electrical mechanical side, or they're just downright slow. But they had the pace this weekend. They were fast. They were definitely not the slowest in the class. Obviously, they didn't have the same pace as the winning Porsche or the of course a factory Ferrari as well. But I certainly think that that they've taken a huge step in their program, and also they're building towards the future. As just talked about on Grid tonight, they signed the Formula E star Nick Cassidy to its driver lineup next year. And for Peugeot, if they weren't serious about being in the World Endurance Championship well into the future, they wouldn't have went out and signed Nick Cassidy. And that's a sign of things to come, because after they were struggling earlier this year, remember we're talking about on Grid tonight with Matt White and Joshua Birch, and I was saying I don't really know if this program is going to last much longer, because it's been a huge disappointment since they've come back. And today, finishing 3rd with that, I believe it was the number 94 Peugeot. And 3rd, that was a great result by Stoffel Van Dorn, Lloyd Duvall, and Malte Jakobsen. And then in 4th place, you had Mikkel Jensen, Paul di Resta, and Jean-Eric Vergne in 4th. And I hope this program continues to build, continue to add quality talent like a Nick Cassidy. Who knows what the future holds for this team? Maybe they can. Maybe at some point they can get to the top step of the podium and win the FIA World Endurance Championship race in the hypercar class. That would be really special for the organization, considering all of the troubles they've had with this car. That started off with the wingless version of this prototype, and that was a disaster. Then they switched to the wing version of it, and it's been a little bit better, but not by much. But today, I know at one podium, a 4th place finish is not a win, but given everything they've gone through, today has to feel like a win. Really happy to see Peugeot finally find some success in his comeback to top-level sports car racing.
Always great to see when a team finally starts to get things together and start moving up in their respective series. It's just something where the hard work, so many people in that team are putting in such an effort to get the rewards of seeing that hard work. It's always so great to see, but this is racing. Motorsports is not a guarantee. It's just one of those deals where you got to go out there on track. So much has to come together to get that win. Podiums are just as hard too. I mean, we see it all the time. The big celebration when a team that doesn't get podium often get those podiums. With that said, tomorrow, Grid Encore. Ben and Brandon will be on the air. Plenty to talk about, including the Xfinity Series race that occurred at Gateway. Kobe will be on the air. Grid tonight. There's still some IndyCar silly season. We'll see if it's going to be another 40-minute IndyCar silly season recap next Wednesday. But if not, we know there'll be plenty of news as more news is coming out throughout the race weekend. Then we'll do this all over again with Grid Live for NASCAR Bristol. And then we'll wrap it all up with the wrap-up show on Sunday. So be sure to subscribe, hit that bell icon so you support the Grid Network. Visit gridnetworktv.com, especially check out Matthew Bro's article. And a big thank you to our Patreon investors calling the show, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew, for investing in us, making all this possible. For Kobe Lambeth and Matthew Bro, I'm Joe San Diego. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time.